The last fire in my great hall went out on the night she came in from the sea. I remember it because I was watching it die. That was what a king did in Dunkero by then. He sat in a cold chair and watched fires die, and told himself he was keeping vigil when what he was really doing was giving up slowly, one ember at a time. The great hall hearth had been the last one still lit in the whole of my hold. It had burned low all that gray afternoon and low all through the dark, and near midnight it guttered down to a single coal the color of a dying man's mouth. And then that closed too, and the hall went black, and I did not get up to feed it. There was no wood that would catch any more. That was the truth of us. We could pile a hearth to the mantel with good dry oak and set a torch to it, and it would smoke and sulk and give a thin cold flame that shed no heat, and then, in an hour or a day, it would simply lose its heart and go out. Everything in Dunkero lost its heart in the end. That was the wane. 40 years the wane had been eating my hold. It came off the sallow sea the year I was a boy, a fog that did not lift, and where it lay the world went gray and quiet and slow. Fire dimmed first, then the wolves. Then the people not dying exactly, not clean quick dying a man could grieve and be done with, but fading, their color leaching out of them, their voices going soft, until one morning you would find an old woman sitting by her cold hearth with her hands folded and her eyes open, and no more warmth in her than in the stone she sat on. We buried a great many of Dunkero's people in those 40 years. We buried the loud ones and the bright ones first, as if the wane had a taste for anything that burned. I was the Lycan King of that fading place. I had my father's crown and my father's failing hold and my father's helplessness, and I had a wolf inside me that I had not heard in 9 years. That was the worst of it, and the part I told no one. A Lycan King without his wolf is a lamp without a flame, a shape that remembers being light. Mine had gone quiet the winter my sister faded, and it had not spoken since, and I had stopped waiting for it. I had stopped waiting for most things. So when the horn on the seawall blew that night, thin and flat through the fog, I did not hurry. It blew once for a boat. My steward Bram found me in the black hall. He carried a lantern that shed the sick gray non-light we made now, more a paleness than a glow, and he told me a fishing skiff had come apart on the sundering rocks below the hold, and one soul had made the shingle alive, and did I want her turned back to the strand or brought up? Her, I said. A woman lord, half drowned. She's asking shelter for a night. I could have turned her back. I had turned others back. It was a mercy most days not to bring a warm living thing under Dunkero's roof to be grayed. But I was tired that night in a way that had gone past caring, and some worn-out corner of me remembered that my father would have taken her in, and my father had been a better king than I was, so I said, "Bring her to the small hearth in the west solar. Give her dry things. She'll not want to stay past dawn." I did not go down to see her. I want to be honest about that. I did not go down. I sat in my dead hall a while longer, and then I climbed to my chambers and lay in the cold, and I thought, with no feeling at all, the wane will have her grayed by morning, and she will be one more we could not keep. And I slept, if you could call it that. I woke to warmth on my hands. I lay a long moment not understanding it. My hands were folded on my chest, the way I always slept, the way the faded dead were always found, and they were warm, not the memory of warmth, not the gray lukewarm of our sick fires, but true heat, the kind that had a source, the kind that came off a hearth and crossed a room and touched a sleeping man's skin. I had not felt it in so long that for a moment I thought I was dying, that this was the last trick the body played. Then I smelled wood smoke. Real wood smoke, resinous and sweet. I was down the stairs before I had decided to move. The west solar door was open and the light came out of it into the corridor, not our paleness. Light, gold and living, and it threw a moving shadow on the wall. I stopped in the doorway like a man stopped at the edge of something holy. She was asleep in the chair by the hearth, and the hearth was burning. It was not a great fire. It was a small tidy fire of 3 split logs, the kind any careful hand could lay, and it should have meant nothing, and it meant everything, because it was burning, orange and gold and alive, snapping, throwing heat that reached me across the whole width of the room, in a hold where no fire had truly burned in 40 years. The firelight was on her sleeping face. She had dark hair drying in salt-stiff waves and a plain, wet-ruined face, and her hands were folded in her lap, folded the way the faded dead folded theirs, but there was color in them. There was color in her. She sat in the one warm room in all my dying kingdom, and she was not gray at all. I must have made some sound, because she woke. She did not startle the way most folks startled at the sight of me. I am a big man, and there is enough wolf in a Lycan King's face that children learn to be afraid of it. She simply opened her eyes and looked at me across the fire, unhurried, taking me in. "I'm sorry," she said. Her voice was low and a little rough from the sea. "The room was so cold, I couldn't sleep for it. I hope it's no trespass I laid a fire." "You laid a fire," I repeated. "I'm a chandler by trade. Candles, tapers, tallow, all of it, I know my way around a flame." A small, tired smile. "It's a poor guest who freezes in a lord's own house and says nothing. I found wood in the box. I hope." "That wood does not burn," I said. She looked at the fire. She looked back at me, plainly puzzled, the way you'd look at a man who told you water didn't run downhill. "It's burning now." And it was, God help me, it was. I crossed the room. I knelt, a king in his nightclothes, before a shipwrecked stranger's little fire, and I held my scarred hands out to it, and the heat bit at my skin, alive and honest and almost unbearable, and something in my chest that had been clenched shut for 9 years gave a single hard throb, like a fist unclosing one finger. "Sir," she said, uncertain now, half risen from the chair. "Are you well? You've gone, you look." "How long did it take to catch?" I asked her, and I heard how strange my voice was. "The fire, no time at all. One spark to the kindling and it took like anything." She frowned. "Why?" I did not answer her. I could not yet. I knelt at her hearth with the heat on my face, and I understood, with the slow, terrible certainty of a man watching the tide turn, that whatever this woman was, the Wayne had not touched her. She had slept a whole night under Dunkero's cursed roof, and she had not grayed. She had laid 3 logs, and they had caught like anything, in a hold where oak went out like a whisper. And the throb in my chest came again, harder, and this time faint, far off, buried under 9 years of silence. Something inside me lifted its head. My wolf that had not stirred since my sister faded, turned toward the warmth of this stranger's fire like a starved thing catching scent of bread. I have ruled long enough to know when a thing is too large to speak of yet. I got to my feet. I made my face a king's face. And I said, in a voice that came out steadier than I felt, "Stay. Past dawn. Stay a day at least until the sea's calmed. You'll not want to sail on the Sundering with the fog this thick." She studied me. She had a way of looking that went a little further into you than was comfortable, and even soaked and tired and half-wrecked she used it. "You've decided something about me," she said. "In the last minute, I don't know what." "What's your name?" "Elspeth." "Then stay, Elspeth," I said. "I'm Rise. This is Dunkero and I am its king, and I am asking you as a favor, not a command, to stay a while." She looked at the fire and then at me, and something in her seemed to fold its wings and settle. She said softly. "I've nowhere pressing to be. My boat's on your rocks. I'll stay till I've the means to go." I went out into the corridor, and I leaned my back against the cold stone, and I stood there a long time in the dark, shaking, while behind me through the open door the impossible fire burned and would not go out. By the second day, it was not only the one fire. I did not tell her what she was. I did not know yet, and a part of me was afraid to look at it straight, the way you're afraid to turn over a good card too fast. But I watched her. God, I watched her. She would not sit still, that was the first thing. A woman driven off the sea onto a stranger's rocks, with nothing but the salt-stiff clothes she'd washed up in. She might have kept to her warm room and licked her wounds, and none would have blamed her. Instead, she was up with the gray dawn and out among us, and where she went, the world changed a little. She found the kitchens, where old Merwin kept a hearth banked in embers that hadn't given real heat since before the girl was born, and she talked to Merwin while she worked, easy and unbothered, and she raked the embers and laid the wood the way her chandler's hands knew, and by noon that kitchen hearth was roaring, and there was color coming back into Merwin's gray cheeks as she stood in the heat of it and wept without knowing she wept. She found the pens where we kept what few wolves still ran with the Dunkero pack, a dozen where once there had been 200, gray ghosts of wolves, slow and quiet, curled nose to tail against a cold they'd stopped fighting. She went in among them, which no one but I could do, and she sat down in the straw and did nothing at all, only talked to them low and foolish the way you talk to a dog, and by the time I came looking for her, one old bitch wolf had crept out of her huddle and put her gray head in Elspeth's lap, and the wolf's tail, I had not seen a wolf in Dunkero wag its tail in 9 years. The wolf's tail moved. Once. A slow, uncertain sweep through the straw, like a thing remembering how. I stood in the pen door, and I could not breathe. She likes to have her ears rubbed, Elspeth said, not looking up, rubbing them. Don't you, old woman, there's still some warm in you. There's still some warm in all of you if a body just sits down and coaxes it out. There's still some warm in all of you. I have thought about those words more times than I could count in the years since. She said them to a wolf in a straw pen on a gray morning, and she had no idea she was saying them to me. That was the thing about Elspeth I did not understand for far too long. She did not know. She thought she was only a woman who was good with a flame and easy with beasts and stubborn about the cold. She did not know that the color came back to gray faces when she talked to them. She did not know the fires caught because her hands laid them. She thought Dunkero was simply a hold that had let itself go, a cold, sad place that wanted only a little tending. And so she tended it, the way she'd have tended any cold, sad place, because it was in her nature too, and she could not do otherwise, and she had no notion that she was doing something no soul had done in 40 years. I did. I began to follow her through my own hold like a boy. I told myself it was a king's duty to know his guests' doings. It was not. It was that a room she had passed through was warmer than a room she had not, and I had been cold for a very long time. On the 3rd day, I took her to the hearth fire. Every hold has its heart, and Dunkero's was a hearth, a great black hearth in a round stone chamber at the very center of the hold, so wide a grown man could lie down inside it, built by the first king of my line, 1,000 years gone. The hearth fire had burned in that hearth without going out for 1,000 years. My father tended it, and his father and hers, all the way back, a fire fed hand to hand down 1,000 years of kings. The fire that Dunkero's whole warmth had once flowed out from, hearth to the meanest fisher's croft in Salomouth below. The hearth fire went out the winter I turned 20. It was the first thing the Wain truly took from me that I could not pretend away. We had fed it and fanned it and prayed over it, and it had died in my hands, on my watch, the 1,000-year fire, and I had knelt in the cold ash of it, and understood that I was the king who had let Dunkero's heart go out. I had not been able to make myself go back into that room in 19 years. I took Elspeth there because I had to know. I brought her down the winding stair into the round chamber, and there it was, the vast black hearth, the 1,000-year hearth, cold as a tomb, its ash gone hard and gray as slate, and the cold came off it the way heat comes off a forge, a cold with a pull to it, hungry. Elspeth went quiet at the door. She was not a woman who went quiet. "What is this place?" she asked. "It's the heart of my hold," I said. "A fire burned here 1,000 years. It went out 19 winters ago, and it has never lit again, though I have burned a forest in it trying." She walked toward it slowly. The cold thickened as she went. I saw her breath cloud. I saw, and my own breath stopped. I saw the gray begin to creep up the hem of her, the first gray I had seen touch her, the Wain reaching for her at last now that she stood at the center of its hunger. "Elspeth," I said sharply, "come away from it." She didn't. She stood before the great cold hearth and she looked into it the way she'd looked into me that first night, going a little further in than was comfortable, and her face when she turned back to me was strange and unsteady, and she said, "There's something here, under the ash. Something," she pressed a hand to her own breastbone. "It's cold in here in a way that isn't weather. It wants something. Can't you feel it wanting?" "Yes," I said. "It's been wanting for 40 years. Come away now, please." She came, and as she stepped back from the heart fire, the gray went out of her hem, the color came back into her, and I let out a breath I hadn't known I was holding, and I understood that I had brought her here half hoping and half dreading, and that I had my answer to the half dread. The Wain could touch her. If she stood close enough to its heart, it could reach her. She was not proof against it. She was only warmer than it was for now. That night I went to find Old Rue. Old Rue was the last loremother of Dunkero, and she was near 200 years old, which is not possible, and was true. The Wain could not fade her because there was almost nothing left in her to fade. She had gone so far into her own great age that she lived half in the world and half out of it, blind, small as a child, tucked in a tower room full of gray, unburning candles, and she knew every scrap of the old lore that the rest of us had let slip through our cold fingers. "You've brought a fire into my hold, Imrise," she said before I'd said a word. Her voice was a dry leaf. "I can feel it from here, first warmth I've felt in 40 years. Come and sit by it a moment, would you, and let an old woman thaw." There was no fire in her room. She meant me. She meant the warmth I'd been carrying since Elspeth laid 3 logs in the West Solar. She could feel it coming off me, and I had not even known it showed. "Rue," I said, and my voice cracked on it. "What is she?" The old woman was quiet a long while. Then she said, "Sit down, boy, and I'll tell you a thing your father should have told you if he'd have believed it. Sit down. This is the true story of the Wain, and no king of Dunkero has heard it whole in a very long time." I said, "The Wain is not a weather and not a plague," Old Rue said. "The Wain is a grief so old and so wrong it soured into a curse, and the curse settled on this line and this hold, and it will eat Dunkero to cold ash before it's done unless it's answered. And it can only be answered one way, which is why it's never been answered, because the answer is the hardest thing there is." "Tell me." "Once," she said, "long before your father's father's father, there was a king of Dunkero who had a fated mate. You know what that is? You're a Lycan King. It's in your blood, though your blood's gone so cold you've maybe forgot. A true mate. The one the moon and the wolf and the whole self of you reaches for and knows. There is no greater warmth a wolf can hold than a true mate freely chosen and cherished. It is the fire the heart fire was lit from in the very beginning, the first king's true bond made flame." The cold of her tower room seemed to deepen. "That old king found his true mate," Rue went on, "and he was a proud man and she was low-born, a poor woman, nothing, no house, no name, and he was ashamed of her. His council sneered at her. His pride could not bear it. So he turned her away. He refused his own true mate, sent her out from Dunkero into the winter, and chose a fine cold bride his council liked, and told himself he'd done right by his crown." I said nothing. There was a stone forming in my belly. "His true mate died on the road out," Rue said softly. "Alone, in the cold he'd sent her into, and when a true mate dies of a bond refused, Imrise, there is no wound like it in this world or under it. The whole warmth of the line went out of that king in the hour she died. His wolf went silent. His heart fire dimmed. And the grief of what he'd done, the grief of a warmth freely offered and cruelly refused, sank into the stones of Dunkero and would not leave, and it has been draining this hold of every warmth it can reach from that day to this. The Wain is that. The Wain is a love refused, gone rancid, eating everything warm it can find because the one warm thing it wanted was thrown away." The fire I'd felt in my chest since the West Solar was beating now, slow and hard. "How is it answered?" I made myself ask. "The same coin that made it," Rue said. "A true mate. A king of this line who finds his own fated mate and this time chooses her, cherishes her. Freely, wholly, with no pride and no shame and no counsel fear, chooses the warmth he was given and holds it and does not let it go. A true bond, freely made and freely sealed, is the only fire hot enough to relight what a refused bond put out. It's the one thing that can wake the heart fire. It's the one thing that can end the wane. Her blind eyes found me somehow in the dark. And it has never happened in all these 40 years and the long gray years before, because no king of this line has had a true mate come to him again. Until, Emrise, 3 days ago, a woman came in off the sea into your cursed hold and did not gray, and lit a fire that would not go out. No, I said, not to her, to the size of it. You know it, Rue said. You've known it since the first night. Your wolf woke, didn't it? 9 years dead and it woke for her. That's not a thing a wolf does for a stranger, boy. That's a thing a wolf does for a mate. I sat in the cold with my face in my hands. Then I'll damn her, I said, muffled. You understand that. To break this curse I have to bind her to me, bring her close, keep her here, seal a bond at the very heart of the thing that's hungriest for warmth. You saw the gray reach for her at the heart fire and I stood 10 feet off. The closer she comes to breaking it, the harder it will reach for her. The wane is a love that was murdered. If it senses I mean to answer it with a love that lives, it will do everything it can to put her out first. I'd be carrying her toward the one fire that most wants to eat her. Yes, old Rue said. She did not soften it. She was 200 years old and past softening things. That is exactly what you'd be doing. Then I won't, I said. I'll send her away with silver and a good boat and she'll live, somewhere warm far from here, and Dunkero will go on dying, and that will be the price, and I will pay it, because I have already watched everyone I love fade gray in these halls and I will not watch her. Emrise, the old leaf voice cut me clean off. Listen to yourself. You'd refuse her to keep her safe, to keep your own heart from breaking. You'd send your true mate out from Dunkero into the cold. A terrible pause. That is the first king's story. That is how the wane was born. A king who turned his true mate away to spare himself. Do it and you don't spare her, you feed the thing. You make it stronger. You lay the same curse on your own name that's been eating this hold 1,000 years. The stone in my belly went straight through me. There's no safe road, Rue said, gentler now at the end. That's the cruelty of a grief curse, boy. It sets the trap so the easy choice, the safe choice, the send her away choice, is the very thing that made it. The only way out is the hard way. Choose her. Truly. Not as a key to your curse, she'd feel that, and a bond made to use someone is no true bond and won't light so much as a candle. You have to actually love her, Emrise, and let her actually choose you and mean it enough to risk her and let her decide whether she's willing to be risked. It has to be freely given. On both sides. That's the whole of it. That's the fire. I sat with her a long time in the dark. She doesn't know what she is, I said at last. No, said Rue, and you can't make her stay to break your curse, that's not free. And you can't send her away to save her life, that's the first king's sin. So there's only one honest thing left to you, isn't there? Tell her the truth, I said, all of it, and let her choose. All of it, Rue agreed. The curse, the danger, what she is to you, what you feel, and don't you dare lie to yourself that you don't feel it. I can feel it off you from across a black room. Tell her everything and let a grown woman weigh her own life in her own hands. It's the only door out of the trap, Emrise, the honest one. It always is. I did not tell her that night. I am not proud of it. I told myself I was letting her rest, that the sea hurt was still in her, that there was time, and all of that was true, and none of it was why. Why was that I had been cold for 19 years and warm for 3 days, and I did not want to hold out the warmth in both hands and let her look at all the ways it could get her killed. I wanted a little longer of her not knowing. I wanted a little longer of the thing being simple. So instead I did a foolish, tender, cowardly thing. I spent the day with her and said none of it. I told her it was a king's duty to show a guest his hold. It was not. I walked her along the seawall in the fog and told her the names of the drowned rocks, the Sundering, the Widow, the Black Ewe, and she listened with her whole face the way she did. And where we walked the fog thinned a little, and a fisher down on the strand looked up and saw a patch of pale sun break through that had not broken through in years, and stood there staring at it with his mouth open. I took her down into Salomith, the gray fishing village huddled under my hold, and the folk came to their crooked doors to look at her, at the color of her, at the warmth that walked with her. And an old man reached out as she passed and just touched her sleeve, said nothing, only touched it, the way you'd touch a thing you'd been told about but never thought to see. And Elspeth, who did not understand any of it, smiled at them and asked their names and admired a child's carved boat, and did not notice that behind her the grayest, sickest little village on the Sallow coast was, house by house, warming as she went. I noticed, God, I noticed everything. And I noticed my wolf. All that gray day it grew louder in me. 9 years silent, and now it was awake and it would not lie down, and it wanted only one thing, which was to be near her, and it told me so in the old wordless way, a pull under the sternum, a heat behind the ribs. Not my wolf went still. Nothing so cold and quiet as that, but the opposite, a slow deep kindling, as if someone had laid a fire in a hearth that had been cold 19 years and put a spark to the kindling, and it had taken like anything. That was how it felt. It felt like Elspeth's first fire, lit inside my own chest. We came back up to the hold at dusk and stood on the seawall in the last of the light, and she said, out of nothing, "You're happier today." Am I? You are. You were like a mourner the night I came, a man sitting up with a body. And you're not today. She looked out at the gray sea. It's a sad place, your Dunkero, but it's not a dead place. I keep thinking it's dead and then I catch it being alive. That kitchen this morning, that old wolf, that break of sun on the water, there's something still warm in it under all the gray. There's something still warm in you under all the gray. I don't think you believe that anymore, but there is. I keep catching it. And I very nearly told her then. It rose all the way up my throat. The reason there's warmth wherever you go is you, Elspeth, it's you. You're the thing this whole dying hold has been waiting 1,000 years for, and I am falling, I have fallen, and it could kill you, and you have to know. It rose all the way up, and I looked at her face in the last gray light, glad and easy and not knowing, and I let it fall back down, one more day, one more, and I said only, "You're a strange comfort, Chandler." "I've been called worse," she said, and laughed, and the sound of a real laugh in Dunkero was so foreign that a gull startled off the wall. I got my one more day. I did not get more than that. The Wayne saw to it. It came for her that night. I woke again to a wrongness, but not warmth this time. The opposite, a cold so sudden and so deep that the water in my bedside ewer had skinned with ice. And I knew, the way you know a scream before you've heard it, that something was very wrong, and I was out of my bed and running through my black hold in my bare feet before I'd thought a single word. The cold pulled me. It had a direction. It flowed like a tide, all of it, all the cold in Dunkero moving together toward one place, and I followed it against the current, up cold, cold, colder, and I knew where it was going before I got there, and I could not run fast enough. The West Solar, her room, her little warm room with the fire that would not go out. The fire had gone out. I hit the door and it was black inside and colder than the Heartfire chamber, colder than the top of the sea in winter, and she was in the chair where I'd first found her, in the chair, folded, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes half open, and the gray was up to her waist. The gray was climbing her. She was fading in front of me, the color running out of her like water out of a cracked jug, and her breath when it came was slow and far apart, the breath of the faded dead, and the whole hungry cold of 1,000 years was pouring into that little room and pouring into her, because she was the one warm thing left, and the Wayne had finally understood what she was. "No," I said, "no, no." I got to her. I took her folded hands in mine, and they were cold, cold as the dead I'd buried, and I dropped to my knees in front of her chair, and I did the only thing there was to do, which was I put everything warm in me into my 2 hands, and I held hers and I called her back. Elspeth, Elspeth, look at me, come back, you have to come back. Her eyes drifted, found me so far off. So cold, she breathed. Imrise, I can't get warm. I've always been able to get warm. I know you have. Listen to me now. I was crying. I hadn't cried in 19 years, and I was crying onto our joined hands. There's a thing I should have told you 3 days ago, and I was a coward, and I didn't. And I'm telling you now, all of it, and you have to stay awake and hear it. Can you hear me? This hold is cursed, 40 years. A grief curse. A king of my line long ago turned his true mate away, and she died of it, and her death soured into the thing that's eaten Dunkero ever since. It puts out every warmth it can reach. That's the wane. That's what's on you now. Her eyes were sinking closed. I gripped her hands harder. Stay with me. And there's only one thing in the world can end it, Elspeth, and it's a true mate, a king of this line who finds his fated mate and chooses her freely and is cherished back freely. And the bond of it lights the heart fire that a refused bond put out. That's the answer. It's the only answer. And Elspeth, my voice went to nothing, it's you. You're my fated mate. My wolf woke for you the first night, 9 years dead, and it woke for you. The fires catch because you lay them. The gray lifts where you walk. You've never grieved a cold room in your life because you carry the cure to it in your own 2 hands. You're what this dying hold has waited 1,000 years for. You're mine if you'll have me. And I should have told you, and I didn't, because the moment I bind myself to you, the curse will do exactly this. It will throw everything it has at putting you out, because you're the one warmth that can't survive. I've been trying to keep you safe by keeping quiet. And keeping quiet is killing you. It's the same as sending you into the cold. It's the same sin that started the whole thing. So I'm done being quiet. I'm telling you the truth, and I'm asking you, awake, with your life in your own hands. Choose. Send me off, and I'll put you in the warmest boat on the coast and let you go, and Dunkero will die and you'll live, and I'll never fault you, not for a heartbeat. Or. Her hand turned in mine. Cold, so cold, but it turned, and her fingers closed on my fingers, and it cost her everything. I could see it cost her everything, and her eyes came open and found me and held. Or, she whispered. Or you choose me, I said, knowing all of it, knowing what it wants to do to you, knowing I can't promise it won't. You choose me freely, and we seal it here now, and we bet everything that the fire we make is hotter than the fire that's putting you out. That's the whole of it. That's the fire, Rue said, both of us freely meaning it. I pressed my forehead to our hands. I've no right to ask it, it's your life. You great fool, Elspeth breathed. There was a thread of her old warmth in it, faint, but there, coming up from somewhere the wane hadn't reached yet, the deepest ember of her. You've walked me round your sad hold 3 days, showed me your rocks, your wolves, carried this, and you thought I hadn't noticed, that I didn't feel it too. I laid a fire in your solar the first night because I couldn't bear you being cold. I didn't know why. I know why now. Her cold fingers tightened. I choose you, you daft, kind, half-frozen king. I choose you. Now stop weeping on my hands and warm me up. And I did. I will not give you the whole of it, for it belongs to us. But I will tell you it was not a claiming and not a using and not a bargain struck over curse. It was 2 cold people holding on to each other in the dark and choosing to be warm, both, freely, meaning it with their whole selves. A king who had buried his hope and a chandler who had never in her life let a fire go out, deciding together, against 1,000 years of grief, that this one would not go out either. I gathered her cold body up out of that chair into my arms, and I gave her every warmth I had, and she gave me hers, and somewhere at the very bottom of me, my wolf rose up all the way, out of 9 years of silence, and it did not go still. It sang. It howled the old bond note that only a true mate can call out of a wolf, and I felt the answer of it strike her like sunlight strikes water, and I felt the exact instant the bond took hold. It took hold like kindling, it took like anything. And the wane screamed. The cold came at us, then, with everything it had left. 40 years of hunger, 1,000 years of grief, all of it, gathered into one last black surge, and it hit the west solar like a wave hits a wall, the ice sheeting up the stones, the last warmth guttering, the gray rushing back up Elspeth's body even as I held her, because the curse understood now that it was dying, and it meant to take her down into the dark with it before it went. But the bond was lit. I felt it running out of us both, the warmth of a true mate freely chosen, and it was not a warmth the Wayne could put out. It was the warmth the Wayne had been made from, the very fire it had once been before it soured, a love freely given, and it flowed out of us together into the cold, and the cold could not eat it. The cold could only feed it. Every hungry inch of the Wayne that touched our bond only made it burn hotter, and I understood, with Elspeth's heartbeat coming back strong against my chest, that the curse had reached for the one warmth it could not swallow, and it was choking on it. The heart fire, Elspeth gasped against my throat, warm now, warming color flooding back into her so fast it left her dizzy. Rise. I can feel it, the colds all coming from the heart fire. It's the mouth of it, it's where we have to go there. I carried her. I did not set her down. I carried her down through the black hold, and everywhere we passed the surge of the Wayne broke against the warmth we made and scattered. I felt a hearth catch behind us as we passed, and another, our bond throwing sparks into every cold grate we ran by, the warmth spreading out from the two of us the way it had once spread from the heart fire itself, down the winding stair, into the round stone chamber, to the great black 1,000-year hearth, cold 19 years, the mouth of the whole curse, roaring cold now, a hurricane of grief, the last stand of the Wayne. I set her on her feet before it, and we stood together, hand in hand, in the teeth of it. Together, I said. Together, she said. Lay the fire, love, I'll light it. There was no wood in the hearth. It didn't matter. Old Rue had told me the heart fire was the first king's true bond made flame. It had never truly needed wood, only warmth, only a bond to burn. We had that now. We had that at last. Elspeth reached out her chandler's hand, her sea-ruined hand that had lit every fire in my hold, and she laid her palm flat against the cold black stone of the 1,000-year hearth, at the very center of the curse, where 40 years of grief poured out its cold, and I laid my hand over hers, king and mate, and through our joined hands I poured the whole of the bond, everything I felt for her, 3 days and 1,000 years of waiting, my woken wolf, my thawed heart, all of it. And she poured back her whole warm, stubborn self that had never let a fire die, and we gave it freely, both, meaning it. And the heart fire caught. It caught like anything. One spark to the kindling and it took. The 1,000-year fire, dead 19 winters, roared up out of the cold ash all at once, gold and living and enormous, filling the great hearth, filling the round chamber, and the heat of it drove us back a step, laughing, weeping, and the cold of the Wayne broke against that fire like a wave breaks on a rock and could not stand and was gone, not fought back, not held off, but ended. The grief of 1,000 years finally answered, finally warmed, finally let go. I felt it leave the stones of Dunkero. I felt it lift, all of it, a thing that had lain on my home since before I was born, rising off the hold like fog off water in the sun and going. And where it lifted, Dunkero woke. The fire leapt from the heart fire the way it had 1,000 years before, out through the stones, hearth to hearth, up the winding stair and along the black corridors, and I heard it happen. I heard the whole hold come alive around us. Fires catching in every cold grate with a sound like a great indrawn breath, and then the wolves 9 years silent. The wolves woke all at once and threw back their heads and howled, the whole gray ghost pack of them roaring back into life. And under it, human voices, my people, waking in their beds to warmth and light for the first time in 40 years and crying out. And below, in Salometh, I would learn after, every cold hearth in the village had lit itself at the same instant. And the folk had run out into the lanes in their night clothes to see the impossible thing, the great hold on the cliff blazing gold in the dark, every window lit, and above it the fog was tearing open, 40 years of fog off the sallow sea ripping apart to show the stars. Elspeth stood in the roaring gold light of the reborn Heartfire with her face turned up in the color of her blazing, and she was not a poor drowned Chandler off the rocks. She was the warmth Dunkero had waited 1,000 years for. She was my Luna, and my hold was on fire with life around her, and my wolf sang, and I did the only thing a man can do at the end of 19 years of cold. I knelt to her. There before the Heartfire in the light of the hold she'd woken I knelt, and I took her ruined warm hands and I kissed them and I said, Elspeth, stay, not for a night, not till the sea calms. Stay and be Luna of Dunkero and be the fire I light every hearth from for the rest of my life because you already are it, and I want the whole warm world to know it. Stay. And Elspeth pulled me up out of my kneeling. She never would let me kneel to her long and all the years after. She said a man who'd wept on her hands had knelt enough. She pulled me up and she put her warm hand flat on my chest, over the wolf, over the fire she'd lit there, and she said, You daft king. I've been staying since the first night. Someone in this cold house had to keep the fire in. The Wain never came back to Dunkero. The fog lifted and did not return. The gray went out of my people and the color stayed. The pack ran 200 strong again within 3 years, loud and bright and wolfish, the way the Wain had most hated. And the Heartfire has burned without going out from that night to this, and I tend it and she tends it, hand to hand, the way it's meant to be fed, and when I am gone it will pass to hours, for we were not left long without the sound of small feet in the warm halls, though that is a tale for another fire. But I will tell you the truest thing, and then I'm done. Every night of my life since, before we sleep, in our warm chamber in our warm and living hold, Elspeth banks the bedside candle down to its last small flame, and she looks at it a moment, and she does not put it out. She never puts it out. She leaves it burning low till morning, every night all these years. I asked her once why. So you never wake cold, she said. You went cold long enough, my love, not while I'm here. And that is how I know the curse is truly gone. Not because the fires burn. Because a woman who came in off the sea one black night into the coldest hold in the world lies warm beside me now, and leaves a light on so I'll never wake in the dark again, and I never have.